Transferring your drawing to the painting surface is an important step that makes sure that the work that you've put into your composition so far carries over into the final painting. In this video, I'll take the drawing that I made from imagination in the previous video and I'll show you how I transfer the drawing onto the painting surface. I'll also walk you through my process of preparing the panel and making some final tweaks and changes to the drawing in Procreate to make sure that we don't have to deal with any of that later. Let's get into it. I chose a large 60 by 40 centimeters wood panel for this painting because it'll allow for some detailed work and it will make it easier for me to use techniques like glazing. The panel already came primed, but I'm going to apply a layer of tinted gesso to add some extra protection and to tone the painting surface. I added a bit of raw umber acrylic paint into my gesso to create a neutral grey tone. I really like toning my painting surfaces because 1, it helps me see the values better, and 2, I can use it as a mid-tone and then build out my composition around it very fast in the first layer. When you start out with a bright white canvas, it can easily mess with your perception of values, so I highly recommend getting rid of the white before you start painting. Acrylic gesso takes about 24 hours to dry completely, so once the panel was covered, I left it to dry and I took some time to re-evaluate my drawing. I took a picture of it and opened it in Procreate on my iPad. And some might consider it cheating that I digitally alter my drawing, but I think it doesn't really matter what means we use to get to the end goal of having a balanced painting with good proportions and a solid composition. In this case, the head was too large, so I used a liquify tool to adjust the proportions of the figure. Another change I wanted to make was making the trail leading to the heart of Baba Yaga a little bit more wavy to add some visual interest to it. Finally, I moved the tree on the right a little closer to Vasilisa to create a greater overlap, which will make it look like she's coming up from behind it, and that will add more dynamism to the scene. Now that the drawing is ready, it's time to transfer it to the painting surface. I'll need to print it out on several sheets of normal printer paper as a poster that will fit the size of the panel. For this, I usually use the website called Rasterbaiter. It allows me to choose the final size of the poster and create a PDF document that I can then print out and reassemble as a poster. This is the part where it gets a bit more tedious, because now you need to put it all together like a puzzle and tape or glue the sheets into a poster. I don't actually mind, because I find this process quite meditative. I first cut off the edges in a way that the sheets overlap, but nothing but the drawing remains at the top. I then taped them together on the back using masking tape. And this alone would have been enough for a less detailed drawing, but because we have a lot of detail here, I'm going to glue the sheets together to get rid of the seams. It's an optional step, but I just find that a poster like this is easier to use for transferring the drawing, so the extra effort is worth it to me. Now it's time to tint the back of our poster. I used my Sennelier soft pastels for this, and as you can see I used them for little else, so the set is almost pristine, except for this dark red chalk that I've used to transfer some other drawings in the past. I like to use this color because it's easy to see the lines, and since I lean more towards warmer palettes, it will blend smoothly into the oil paint once I start working on the first layer. I let the flat edge of the chalk glide across the paper, staining it all over. If there are areas of your drawing that are more detailed, make sure to pay more attention to them, but don't worry too much about the white spots right now because we're going to spread it all with a brush to ensure equal coverage. I'm using a large, soft watercolor brush, which works perfectly for this. And I really recommend using good quality pastels because they are softer and more pigmented. Trust me, you won't need that much. This one chalk will probably last me another 3 or 4 large drawings. Once I washed all this dust off of my hands, I was finally ready to start transferring the drawing. I secured the panel to my easel and carefully taped the poster to it. By the way, don't worry too much about touching the paper at this point because it won't leave much of a mark, but try not to disturb it too much anyway. Here you can see me do a small test before I tape the drawing on all sides. There will be small speckles of dust all over the panel, but the drawing itself is very clear, which is what we care about here. I used a red ballpoint pen to trace the lines of the drawing, pressing hard enough for the pastel dust to stick to the panel. I recommend using a brightly colored pen to see the parts that you've already traced. I spent most of the time on the figure to make sure that I get all of the details, but for the majority of the painting, the general outline and shadowing is enough to reconstruct the composition. In the meantime, let me quickly explain why I went through the trouble of making this poster instead of just using the drawing itself. First of all, the paper that I used for the drawing was very thick, and it would be a lot harder to transfer the outlines because of that. I mentioned in the video on the drawing that choosing thicker paper is key because of its durability. Also, as you saw early in this video, I wanted to make some final touches before committing the drawing to the painting surface. And finally, I quite like that drawing, and I'd like to keep it as a separate piece, and if I transferred it directly, I'd have to throw it out because it would be ruined. By the way, if you're interested in learning more about how this drawing came together, you can check out the previous videos in this series, which I will link down in the description. Once I felt like I traced everything, I untaped the drawing on 3 sides and checked how it looked underneath. Keeping one side taped allows you to add some final marks without shifting the position of the poster. And with that, the transfer was finally complete. Thank you for joining me for this final step before we finally jump into the painting process. As you can see, you can easily and quickly transfer your drawing onto the painting surface using very simple tools and without losing much of the detail. In the next video, we'll start working on the first layer of the actual oil painting, so stay tuned for that. I'm planning to make about 3 videos covering the oil painting process, so you guys can get the most out of it. Let me know if you have any questions down in the comments. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to this channel for more art shenanigans, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!